February 22nd or 21st Planning Commission meeting. Please start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Wayne, were you going to take roll?
Yes. Mr. Franz,
Present.
Ms. Grabanowski,
She's not.
She's working on it.
Okay, she's working on it. All right.
all right, very good. Mr. Jones,
Present.
Mrs. Walker,
Present.
Mr. Lake, Mrs. Madrick,
Present.
Mrs. Adams.
Present.
All right, so we have 5 people here, 1 trying to connect in, so we do have a quorum. Any matter will still take 4 votes for to be passed or failed. Before the minutes, we have an oath of office for the new member of the Plan Commission. Roger, you're taking care of that? I state your name.
I, Kelly Adams,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America,
the Constitution of the State of Indiana,
the Constitution of the State of Indiana,
and the ordinances of the Town of Zionsville, Indiana.
and the ordinances of the town of Zionsville, Indiana.
I will faithfully, honestly, and impartially
I will faithfully, honestly, and impartially
discharge all of my official duties
discharge all of my official duties
as a member of the Plan Commission
as a member of the Planning Commission
for the Town of Zionsville, Indiana,
for the town of Zionsville, Indiana,
without malice
without malice,
and to the best of my skill and ability,
to the best of my skill and ability,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Welcome aboard. Look forward to working with you. And thank you for your service. I'll say it all at once. In your packet was a set of the minutes from the January 18th meeting. Is there any comments, additions, deletions to those minutes? If there are none, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second? Is there a second? Second. All right, all in favor signify by aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right, we got 4. Mary, we're still not hearing you, if you can hear us.
Aye.
All right, thank you. So that motion carries 5-0. Kelly was not here last month. No, she wasn't here, so got 5 votes. Next on the docket are the continuance requests. Docket number 2022-01 PPA and 2021-71 DP. Silverthorne Homes, Union Woodlands, 12-281 and 11-589 East 200 South, Zionsville. Petition for primary plat amendment for 179 residential lots on 160.92 plus minus acres in the rural, single, and 2-family R3 and agricultural AZ zoning district. The following waiver is requested: subdivision control section 193.052, paragraph 18, subsection B, regarding driveway spacing from an intersection, and a petition for development plan approval for the development of 160.92 plus or minus acre site to accommodate 179 single-family residences with ponds, associated infrastructure, and a park in the rural R3, rural single-family and 2-family residential and agricultural AG zoning district. Is the petitioner present?
Good evening, Plan Commission. Thank you this evening. My name is Sean Downey, project engineer with Silverthorne Homes, office located at 9225 Harrison Park Court, Indianapolis, Indiana, 46216. As President Franz indicated, I'm before you this evening to request a continuance to the March 21st, 2022 Plan Commission meeting. we and our engineers continue to be in discussion with town staff and town review engineer, as well as county highway and county surveyor's office on this project. We've had meetings as recently as Friday discussing the park dedication within this project. With that, there are some comments that we need some additional time to address. So we would respectfully request a continuance to come back before you next month.
All right, thank you. Is there any questions, comments from any of the members of the Plan Commission? If there are none, is there a motion to continue this to the March 21st, 2022 Plan Commission meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Janice, who's going to take roll?
I will do that.
Or-
Ready for,
All right.
ready for
Yeah,
roll call?
ready.
Mr. Franz,
Aye.
Mrs. Grabanowski,
Aye.
Mr. Jones,
Aye.
Mrs. Walker,
Aye.
Mrs. Adams,
Aye.
Mrs. Madrick.
Aye.
All right, motion carries 6-0. We'll see you next month.
Thank you.
Docket number 2022-02 DP J.C. Hart Marketplace Flats at Holiday Farms, Marketplace Drive, Zionsville. Petition for development plan approval of a 220 unit apartment development on a 16.966 plus minus acre site within the rural planned unit development district, Holiday Farms PUD. Following waivers are requested: PUD section 1603 regarding design speed standards of streets, PUD section 1316.16 regarding street blade standards, and the subdivision control section 193.055 and 193.057 regarding easements for storm and sanitary utilities. We've had a remonstrator file a timely continuance request. So it's my understanding that the Plan Commission is required to extend that continuance. So at this point, is there a motion to continue this matter to next month?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Wayne, would you take roll, please?
Certainly. Mrs. Grabanowski,
Aye.
Mr. Jones,
Aye.
Mrs. Walker,
Aye.
Mrs. Adams,
Aye.
Mrs. Madrick,
Aye.
Mr. France.
Aye, that item is continued to next month, March 21st, 2022. New business, docket number 2022-03 DP, the Woodmont Company Kitty Academy at Holiday Farms, 3650 Marketplace Drive, Zionsville. Petition for development plan approval of a childcare facility on a 1.228 plus minus acre parcel within the rural planned unit development district, Holiday Farms PUD. The following waivers are requested: PUD subsection 13.16 regarding street blade standards, and subdivision control section 193.52, paragraph 18, subparagraph B regarding driveway spacing from an intersection. Is the petitioner present?
Yes, hi, this is Melanie Bagley. I'm here representing the Woodmont Company. Can you hear me okay? Hi.
Address, please, and then you may proceed.
Yes, sir. My address is 2348 Arizo Lane in Allen, Texas, 75013. Just wanted to say hello. I'm working on behalf of the Woodmont Company. We are proposing to develop a brand new Kitty Academy, which is an early education and childcare facility. As you can tell from the site plan or the exhibits that have been provided to you in advance of this meeting, we are one of the first new businesses that's going to be coming in here to the brand new Holiday Farm development. We've been working very closely with Henke and our civil engineer, which is Chris Wiseman, who's also here from Cripe with us as well. He's our civil engineer of record, and we feel that's a great benefit to us since he's a part of the day-to-day ongoings related to this overall development. So we've really been working with Henke and then subsequently with staff to accommodate all of the design requests. And we're here to answer any questions you may have regarding the exhibits that have been provided to you. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Yes.
At this time, is there anybody from the public who'd like to comment on this matter? while I'm asking that, is there anybody online who'd like to be recognized who hasn't been recognized yet? Sally Zalanis, I believe, requested to be recognized. All right, so is there any public comment on this matter, either online or in person? All right, staff report, please.
Thank you. The petition before you is for development plan approval with 2 waivers, as was mentioned. The proposed development is of a child care facility, is located on a 1.228 acre site known as Lot A within the secondary plat of Section 7 of Holiday Farms. This portion of Holiday Farms was identified in the PUD as part of the central mixed-use block, and the proposed use is permitted at that location. The building itself would be a single-story, 10,600 square foot childcare facility that would include childcare services, in addition to educational programs for children ranging in age from 6 months to 6 years of age. The facility would employ up to 20 new staff and certified educators, with approximately 10 to 12 staff members in the building during the maximum shift. There are 2 separate playground areas that are fenced for security and designed based on the age groups that will utilize the area. And the proposed operational hours would be from 6:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. Monday through Friday. The 2 waivers that are being requested. First one is regarding street blade standards. This waiver request is the same as what has been requested with other projects within Holiday Farms, and to allow for consistent street blade signage throughout the development. The request is for a more decorative option than what would be utilized typically. The second waiver is regarding driveway spacing from an intersection. This site is located, and I would refer you to Exhibit 2 of the staff report. The subject site is located on the southwest corner of Frederick Place and Marketplace Drive, with the primary vehicular entry, let me clarify, for the only vehicular entry onto the site being off of Frederick Place, which would be to the west of the proposed building. Where that drive is located, it is within 75 feet of the intersection of Frederick Place and Marketplace Drive, and our subdivision control ordinance prohibits driveways within that 75-foot area. That is the reason for the requested waiver. The PUD, again, this project is within the Holiday Farms PUD, and when that PUD was approved, it delegated many of the normal reviews that would fall to the Plan Commission. It deferred those to the developer of the PUD itself, such as review of architecture, review of landscaping, review of lighting. Much of that is now under the jurisdiction or the guidance of the developer of the PUD, and that covers, as I mentioned, landscaping, lighting, signage, which this is a nice plus for this project. We actually have signage information. We don't always get that, but at least that has been provided here. The amount of vehicular parking is also governed by the Holiday Farms PUD based upon their standards. The PUD standards would require a minimum of 32 parking spaces. 33 spaces are proposed for the site, including 2 ADA spots located near the main entrance. Staff is in support of the 2 requested waivers, and also staff is in support of the requested development plan approval for a 10,600 square foot childcare facility. I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have.
All right, thank you. At this point, I'll open it up for comment from members of the Plan Commission.
So Roger, I got a question. So when it comes to architectural review, if a project doesn't meet the standards that Holiday Farm put in their PUD, we don't have any way to enforce that they comply with their own standards?
My read of the PUD, and obviously I would have to defer to council then to confirm or correct me, is that the final architectural design of proposed buildings or development within the PUD is subject to the architectural review board of the overall development, which in this case is still the developer. If in their determination, the proposed architecture meets the design requirements, my read of the PUD is that it is then in compliance with the PUD itself.
So I'm looking through their architectural standards, Exhibit 15 of the binder that we received with the approval of the original project, and back under section C, paragraph E, secondary facades, it talks about how no facade will extend more than 3 times building height without some sort of vertical change in materials and structures and color, blah, blah, blah. The secondary facade, the rear of this, and this is something I'd actually want to ask, actually faces Marketplace Drive. So is that that would consider the primary facade or the secondary, but regardless, it doesn't meet the standards that they've set forth for themselves, but they're the only people that can enforce it. So in other words, there's no standards.
Again, I provided my read of what the PUD says. I do need to defer to council.
What's the answer?
Yeah, the PUD it defines the standards, and so it's whatever the PUD says.
So if they're not meeting the standards that they place in their PUD, who enforces that? Or more to the point, we have no ability to enforce it?
Well, the town can always enforce its zoning ordinance, and the PUD becomes part of the zoning ordinance for that particular development. So you do have some if there were an enforcement issue. But if the PUD provides an architectural review, which is subjective, is left to the developer, then if we have a concern, we should express that to the developer. But again, for the way that it's described, it seems that it's discretionary approval.
So as I'm reading through the petition for development plan approval and I get down to the proposed elevations, they provided a very pretty picture of their entry structure. But architecturally, the building they're getting ready to build has absolutely nothing to do with that picture. Kind of a bait and switch. We have no ability to say, it's nice that you've shown us one thing, but it's not what you've conveyed in the drawings that you're going to do.
Roger, do you know, in the PUD approval, were there commitments that the buildings had to appear as offered at the PUD approval level?
Within the PUD, they did provide conceptual examples of what would be the appearance of buildings in different sections of the PUD because there are different areas. And for each area, they did provide photographic examples of this is the type of thing that we are looking to do.
Yeah, so Mr. Jones, in a situation like that, sometimes your approvals require that the structures appear substantially similar to what is presented to you. In most mixed use PUDs, there's more flexibility built in. But I would say that if you have PUDs presented and it contains provisions where the architectural review is given to the developer and you don't want that, then don't approve them.
So
And I understand your point. I'm just,
So I guess when I'm expressing my disappointment in the Henke development team and the Holiday Farms, what I really should be doing is expressing my disappointment in that me personally, as a member of this commission, allowed the town of Zionsville to get duped. Because now what we've put ourselves in a bind is that while we've been provided a lot of pretty pictures, we have no ability to enforce that's actually going to happen. It's the same thing right along with, as I went back and kind of reviewed the section regarding the, what do they call it? The hospitality section, the
Historic and hospitality.
historic hospitality and office block. You know, if you read through that, it was an emphasis on collectively laying out things that would the office and medical buildings. If you read through the verbiage as well as the written word regarding the TIF they received, one of the better remonstrance letters I've seen is the one from Mr. Mullen, who kind of spells it out pretty much by citing what the Zionsville Redevelopment Commission said would be there. And they talk about things like amphitheater, community event center. There's no mention of apartments. But once again, in our desire to be supportive of Holiday Farms, not only are we finding ourselves when it comes to architectural standards and review, we got duped, but we also got duped on the ability to say no to apartments up there because it's in the schedule, whatever that is, back in through the project. So I guess all I can do is to say, I guess if future projects come through to this group, we need to sit on them a little harder because obviously there's a substantial difference between what we are told verbally, what we are shown in writing, and what they intend to do. So now when it comes to the kiddie daycare, my first concern is you've got a building that sits basically 3 feet above the street. One of the things that we bent over backwards to help Henke with is the trail aspect that comes up Michigan, routes through the property. We had a substantial amount of discussion and even modified some of the commercial block to make it a little more accessible and visible from Michigan, but we still wanted to create kind of that village atmosphere with the trail going through it. The first building I see coming through it has as its adjoiner to the trail a 5-foot tall fence, some sort of reference to a wall, the back end of a building with a series of doors. Once again, I've already pointed out it doesn't meet the secondary facade standards that they have in there. So what is this? What are we getting? We also have the electrical transformer out there too. I mean, it's, you know, we discussed this the other day with the project over at Stonegate, where the facade entry faced kind of the parking lot, but the rear of the building faced the neighborhood. And we worked to get a little more detail, something a little bit more pleasing to the eye. I kind of find it funny, a decade ago when I started doing this, we approved the Walgreens over there at Oak and Ford Road and sent them back several months till we got a facade on all 4 sides. It was actually kind of appeasing to the neighborhood. It seems since then, we've just lost the ability to have any sort of architectural integrity when it comes to any of the buildings that we're getting now. So I don't know what to do with it. It doesn't meet standards that they have in their own PUD. Obviously, it sounds like we don't have any say over it. We've got a facade that butts up to the trail piece that is supposed to be a you know, I don't know. I gotta laugh. The amount of time we spend saying we don't want to be Carmel, but Carmel sure as hell does a much better job when it comes to the structures and the buildings they put along their trail and the interconnectivity they do, and than what we're getting here. Because everybody on the commission, I hope you understand that the colorful pictures and the renderings we're seeing is the best this is ever going to look. Other than that, we're getting a 10,000 square foot block building with a minimal amount of fiber cement at the top and a few sparse pieces of ephes to make it look like there's columns. Other than that, I got no opinion.
I want to add on something that you said, Larry, on that. You know, when I see this and I compare it to what we saw when the PUD first came before us, this would not be something we would anticipate to be built there.
Nope.
And further, we see this is the first building that's going to go up. It's setting the bar. And I would argue compared to what we saw, it's a pretty low bar. You know, aside from that, you know, the parking lot where you've got the entrance to the parking lot, I'm assuming that's a two-way street, Frederick Place. With everybody going in and out at early in the morning, that's going to be a nightmare, you know, from a standpoint of traffic. I mean, I
Yeah,
don't know if
there's
anything
no
you can-
flow. There's
Yeah, I mean, it's,
daycare. You drop off your kids. You're in and out.
yeah, I mean, there's one entrance in, one entrance out, and it just flows right through. This is gonna be, it's gonna be backed up in the parking lot, it's gonna be backed up on Frederick Place. I mean, I honestly don't know if there's anything that can be done to even address that with the way this is sitting on the lot.
I had the same questions. I had them all marked here, the same kinds of things you gentlemen are talking about.
Yeah, the nature of a childcare is you've got to have a fence surrounding the entire structure. And when you start, and what I couldn't quite figure out is the grade change from the building to the street. There's a 3-foot difference down there at the south end of it. And there's a little notation about some type of wall and some type of fence, but in the end, I don't quite get what we're gonna get. I can imagine, and there's not sufficient detail in here. The renderings that they put in here, they're colorful, but they have absolutely no bearing on how the building is sited or its relationship to the street or anything else. I mean, it's just that it's, you know.
Were there any renderings of the fence that was going up?
I mean, in the plans, there is a fence detail. It's a 5-foot.
Okay, I see.
Yeah, it looks like it's-
Okay, I see it, yeah.
But there's an item number 17 that's called out in the Cripe drawings. It says it's a wall. Is it a, you know, and it's somewhere down there at the, it appears that, you know, you've got a building sitting at 703, or is it 703? And it's going to have a regular continuous concrete stoop out the back side of it. But there's a grade change. The building is so close to the street that you can't meet the 1 inch per 1 foot typical drop. You've got some 30 inches of grade change from top of curb to building slab, and you don't have 30 feet.
Petitioner, would you like to comment, address any of these concerns?
Of course, I was just wondering, I didn't want to interrupt. I've been keeping a little list. And of course, I'll probably defer to Chris Wiseman as well to some degree. Let me start with the architectural comments that were discussed here just a little bit ago. You know, I think starting with the color renderings that were provided, you know, the color renderings are meant to give some indication of how the materiality will play out when it's actually installed. I believe it is a little bit deceiving just because of the digital nature, you know, of what's been produced. You know, I think we started, if you could see what we started with and where we've come, I mean, we started with a building that was predominantly stucco. And, you know, with a masonry water table. And, you know, we were advised that a full masonry building with, you know, a coping at the top and, you know, was more desirable. So, you know, we've gone from something that is, I would say prototypical to, and considering alternative materials for masonry to a full masonry building. Citing the examples of New Albany and references that we were given, you have predominantly masonry buildings, and that's sort of the look that we were trying to achieve here. I think looking back at the code regarding the fenestrations or the breaks in the plane, we are proposing, the columns, the bump outs to break up the plane. I understand that there is a desire to have more of that, but considering the internal layout for any of you that have maybe taken your child to a child care facility at one point or another, it's set up like a school, like classrooms. The doors at the back, those are for emergency egress purposes and access to the playground. Every classroom has to have its own access. So that's why you see the series of doors along the marketplace side. It's not just because we wanted to have a lot of doors, and I'm sure you can understand that need. The other item related to the sticking with the aesthetics, the fencing, that is something I realize there's conflicting details in here. That has been an ongoing discussion with the developer. We do have a lot of fencing that is going to be required here. Fencing is required at that east elevation along Marketplace, again, for children that are going outside and heading to the playground area. Obviously, because the developer required us to pull the building so close to Marketplace Drive, we had to have, the fencing there to keep the children safe. There was a discussion with the developer as to whether or not a masonry base to that fence would be required. But given the constraints of the site and the building being so close to Marketplace, we really didn't have room for it. Additionally, as you might imagine, a fence at a playground area that has a masonry base might entice young children to climb up on it, jump off of it, becomes a safety hazard. So it is our desire to move forward with just a double powder coated steel fence that would have some type of finial or decorative element incorporated. Related to the traffic, I understand, again, I have 4 children. I know what pick up and drop off. No one knows that more than me. But as I understand it, the area to the south of us is under contract and is going to be coming into the town for, planning and site review very shortly. So there is a plan for this to continue through and create 2 points of access. As you travel from, as you enter in from Frederick, you would then have the option to leave to the south and go back out into Marketplace. So that plan is in play. This site will not dead end, and I agree that would be a traffic nightmare. The other thing to consider is that for those of you that have ever taken a child to daycare, our hours we open at 6:30. So people start dropping off, between the hours of 6:30, anywhere from the hour, to 9, all the way up to 9:30. So yes, will there be a point somewhere in that time where there'll probably be a peak? Yes, but with the range of time that we would expect people to drop off and to pick up, it is staggered such that I do believe that once that development to the south is open, there will be a steady flow through the site, and congestion would be mitigated. Regarding the grade change at the south corner, yes, there is a grade change because, as I mentioned, with the building, to create that urban downtown feel, we've pulled this building close to Marketplace. As such, there is a sort of steep grade change there at that southeast corner. The detail that you're referring to, I believe, is a low a turn down curb, if you will, and that is something that we're working through with Henke, the developer. That would be proposed to complement the style of that, the materiality of that would be complementary of the main building. Chris, do you want to add anything as far as the differential there and how you've designed it for that turn down curb?
Sure.
Please introduce yourself and address, please.
This is Chris Wiseman. I work at Cripe. My address is 3835 East 78th Street, Indianapolis, Indiana, 46240. The grade differential starts, it's on the high side is the north side, and the grade falls to the south side. From the north to the south, the highest point on that turn down at the interface between, we'll call it the stoop of the Kitty Academy and the plaza of the Hinkie development, the Marketplace Drive corridor. It's not 3 feet. It's actually 1 foot. I think it's 11 inches, 1 foot, 11, like 2 feet, approximately 2 feet at the tallest point on the south side. The fence will be along the top of it, and it's a turn down to that plaza grade. The material types is what she alluded to. That's in regards to the grading question.
Thank you, Chris.
Melanie, also, you were, I think, on the drop off, they don't pull up and just let the kids out. They actually park their car and walk them in, correct?
That's correct. Thank you for pointing that out. Yes, there is no porte cochere or valet service or any service of that type. Parents are permitted to actually take their kid to the classroom. So, that is an option that would encourage people to park, come into the building. It's not going to be, and that was a question that came up during TAC, that, there was concern about cars stacking up, queuing back onto Frederick and in anticipation of dropping off their child, but that's not the case here. They will be required to park and walk their child into the facility. I would like to point out that we have been working with Hinkie at length on this. We recognize that this is sort of the at a very prominent intersection, and from the photos that we were given, we're really working to present a nice full masonry building, with a cornice or coping that is decorative in nature. Windows that were a little more in keeping with the period or the look that is, that the town and the developer are striving for. I would ask that, the commission give consideration to, what we're presenting here tonight.
Like I said, I still have the same problem that what's being presented and what we're going to end up with are not the same. They speak of columns on the face of the building, but all I see is a block building when I look at the plan detail. And when I read down through the notes, most of the columns are just control joints. So it's not really and it certainly has nothing to do with the picture you're showing of the gatehouse at Holiday Farms. And then finally, I guess I got to go reread, my planned urban development. I didn't think the town of Zionsville gave up their rights to the architectural review, which is a mistake on us.
You mentioned that there's going to be before the plan or potential petition before the plan commission for the property south. And you mentioned that that's going to connect to another driveway on that property, but I'm looking on your D0001, the development plan that has the whole area, picture, on here. So again, if that goes south, does that dead end? Wayne, do you have any idea how this is going to end up? Is there going to be a drive all the way behind those buildings, or I see there's kind of it looks like there's potential for an intersection on these drawings. Are those going to be connected through the sides, lots?
Boy, this is where I wish that, that someone from.
I could answer that question. This is Chris. Yes, the vision of Hinkie, from what I've gathered and meeting with them, is all the lots. I think there's 4 lots starting with Kitty Academy that goes south, maybe 5 lots. All those driveways, we'll call them drive aisles, and parking will be connected. So they're not going to be standalone outlots. They'll all have interconnected access throughout all the 4 or 5 lots that are on that west side of Marketplace. And then I believe there's 2 curb cuts on Marketplace. I think the next curb cut would be the lot south of this one gets a curb cut on the south side of that lot. And then you 2 more lots is another curb cut to Marketplace. So there will be, in theory, the drive aisle in the rear will be the road, so to speak, that'll navigate the cars over to those Marketplace connections and the Frederick Place to the north.
And honestly, to give you some assurance, I mean, we had concerns up front, related to circulation, especially considering the pre-application meeting, comments that came back from fire. There has to be development to the south, really for fire truck to circulate. And that's been a concern that we've cited with Hinkie right out of the gate. And, they've assured us that, that there will be, a tenant going into the south, there will be connectivity. And that will, again, alleviate some of the traffic. Although I do think, again, as I said, with the times of the day and the hours at which we expect people to drop off, with people having to park and walk their child in, I don't expect any stacking out onto Frederick, if that's the concern. And I do believe that the ingress and egress will not be severely impacted by, a plethora of cars trying to get out of there, because the time is so staggered.
How many kids will be there?
It's an average of approximately 175. Now, take into consideration, I know that sounds like a large number, but it's very rare that it's that number every single day of the entire year, simply because people are on vacation, kids are out sick, for different reasons. It's never, on a very rare occasion is it that maximum number, but it is designed to accommodate that occupancy in the classrooms.
Relative to the parking lot extending down to the southern lots as they're developed, I don't think the intent would have that as a secondary street. So I'm not too certain that the people south of you would appreciate, using it as a street if it does stack. I think, you said that because they park, that can alleviate some of that issue. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think you're going to have that same issue when they park or not. Matter of fact, it could get worse internally because you just got a narrow area, people backing out, blocking each other, that sort of thing. So,
Yeah, these are individually owned parcels, aren't they?
Mr. Wiseman to answer that question.
Mr. Wiseman, are these individually owned parcels?
Yeah, they're all platted in single lots, so I would envision they would all be owned by different parties at some point. I guess somebody could buy multiple if they wanted to.
The point is, the developer doesn't have the wherewithal or doesn't have the right to say that property A can cross property B for.
I think they've made it, yes, it's in,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a part of the purchase agreement on those lots that they have to have access in the rear to all the lots. They have to maintain that access. That's a part of their standard purchase agreement on the access in the rears. They have to maintain that. They can't block it. From what I've heard from Phil and the different Hinky,
Mhm.
Melanie probably can confirm that that was in their standard verbiage.
Yes, that's correct. Otherwise, we wouldn't, I don't think we would have contemplated a design that anticipated a continuous connection.
And Phil does apologize. He had a commitment this afternoon, so he wasn't able to attend. He tried to get another party from Hinky to cover, but it was last minute. So I don't think anybody from Hinky's on, or I don't think I can see who's invited, but I don't think the other person that could be on would be Doug Fleener, but I'm sure he would have a Hinky. Well, actually, he might be signed in. It would be Doug Fleener could be on there for Hinky, but I don't think I didn't hear from Phil that he was going to join on behalf of Hinky.
And Mr. Franz, while we're pausing to review who's in attendance, there is a gentleman who inadvertently didn't get connected exactly when you were asking for initial public comment that does wish to offer public comment at the appropriate
Okay, all right. Well, let's go ahead and take that then, if you want to promote him so he can speak. Have you promoted him? Greg, you're muted.
Did I
There you go.
take it off mute?
Yeah, you're good. Name, address.
Very good. Thank you so much. My name is Greg Strick. I'm a resident of Holiday Farms. I live at 3761 Dartmoor Way, Zionsville. And I would have made comments earlier, but I didn't understand the nature of this particular petition. Just a couple of quick comments. To Mr. Jones's comments about having something in the PUD which seems to be different than what is currently being presented. I would like to express that a number of the neighbors here, both on Dartmoor Way and other parts of the community as current residents, as well as those who are in the process of building or have bought lots and have not yet built, are concerned that there are elements of the PUD, and this is specifically with regard to the apartment complex that was being continued until next month. Parts of the PUD that obviously were there back in June 2018, and we should probably have been aware before we purchased. We should have gone back to read the PUD, but that was not something that was raised to our attention. And so we're looking at this particular part of the development and asking ourselves why things that might affect us as neighbors immediately neighboring that particular property are not going to be thoroughly discussed, and maybe they will be, but we're concerned that we were not provided an opportunity to present our views in a timely manner. And so with that backdrop, I just wanted to express my concern that there were no members of the public who own or who are building homes on the other side of this particular academy, who, if you continue on Frederick's Place to Churwell, there are homes there that will back up to the, what I take it now will be the Kitty Academy. I'm surprised that none of those owners or potential residents in those locations or anywhere on Churwell have come forward to express their views or concerns. I'm wondering, so to the point I want to make, I'm wondering if notice was provided to those particular residents to be able to express timely comment.
Well, obviously, this is public information, so you get an opportunity to speak at the Plan Commission hearing. It sounds like you may be talking about stuff even prior to the Plan Commission, having some input into design, et cetera. That falls under the Architectural Review Board of the PUD, which right now Henke controls. So,
and that's,
I mean, I would argue he doesn't really have to have conversations with that. Whoever's running that doesn't have to have conversations with, other residents. But
yeah,
I mean, until you guys take it over, I mean, at a certain point, you will become responsible for that. But unfortunately, a lot of this stuff at this point falls under their review. So I think that's what you mean, not that you don't get an opportunity to speak at this, because we've got the petition you're referencing to, we got several remonstrance letters, and obviously that was continued until people can get back so they can comment on it. So we will listen to what you have to say here.
and that is precisely my point about not being able to make comment because of who controls the architectural board. And I would hope that while that may be written, I hope that it is not in stone, and hope that the Planning Commission has an opportunity to address things that may not meet standards. I mean, is this a case of the fox now watching the hen house? This is, I hate to be parochial about it, but it could be seen that way. And so, and to your point of setting the bar low, again, it's if they are in control of the architectural board and we as members of the community now forming don't have an input into that, I guess this is a sad way to comment on it, but it's unfortunately a comment that needs to be made. So I thank you for your attention.
All right, thank you. Any more comments, questions on this one?
And I got to make sure. I'm sitting up here reading through the PUD package. There's a section 19 procedural provisions, section 1902, paragraph A, says that there's no development plan approval by the Plan Commission for detached dwellings, which I'm assuming that's houses, development amenities, associated accessory structure, landscaping, lighting, and signage. And then it says, but all other buildings and associated parking, landscaping, lighting, and signage, not for the overall district, shall require development plan approval by the Plan Commission. So if we don't think they're meeting the standards they laid out as part of the architectural review, then we don't have to approve the development plan. Is that, am I?
And I will say that that section that you just read, I did include verbatim in the staff report.
Okay.
That they are required to get development plan approval from the Plan Commission.
Okay.
But there are different sections within the PUD where it talks about, and I'm needing to make the distinction between development plan approval and architectural review. The architectural review is delegated to the developer, but the development plan approval is still a requirement to be. the plan commission does have to give development plan approval.
Roger, are you comfortable that they're fully in compliance with the ordinance, the PUD ordinance on this, the building?
In our review meetings, early on and even through the tech process, there were concerns raised about the architecture of the building. And present at those meetings were representatives of the developer, of the overall developer, in addition to those of Kitty Academy. And those concerns were clear. I believe I'm speaking correctly when I say some of those concerns were even expressed at the pre-filing meeting. But then once a project is submitted to us, we can restate those concerns, but eventually it comes back to we as I understand staff's role, we are very limited in what we can do from an architectural standpoint. And so we have to present to you what is presented and filed.
And expand. Certainly a 2017 review of a 2017 PUD ordinance. And certainly the illustrations that were contained within, thinking back to those moments, are telegraphing to the Plan Commission what you should anticipate receiving for review. And certainly you are then calibrating what you think your processes are going to be when these subsequent projects are coming in. In this particular case, there might be a small, or whatever that size disconnect is between what your expectations were and what the projects are, and certainly working with the petitioner here to move to a point that where the Plan Commission thought these projects were to be when they did come forward. Again, I go back to those moments in 2017. There was very, very comfortable conversations with what this PUD was to bring, the illustrations as to the product. Certainly it's now a few years later. You're exploring the very first one of these. Certainly the project isn't meshing up with your expectations. And certainly those moments can be are being articulated here. Certainly as your counsel has offered, your review is focused on the development plan, not so much the architecture. But if there's issues with the development plan that you see, certainly we can talk about those as well. But certainly, we're not sitting here with an answer for you as to the architecture because of how the PUD is structured. To Mr. Jones's point, future projects may result in a tighter review of the Plan Commission and its language specific to future PUDs.
Dan?
Yeah. Mr. Kilmer, can I just ask you again? Mr. Franz asked whether you thought that the submission was compliant with the PUD and the other applicable ordinances from the town. Was your answer yes, or your recommendation is yes, but is that your answer?
While my preference would be for some other changes to be made, I do believe that what has been submitted is in compliance.
Okay.
And I just would remind the commission, and I wasn't here when this was approved, but I've covered this in training. I'll say it again, that development plan approvals are ministerial. The only question is the question that Mr. Franz asked, which is, does it comply? And then within large, complicated, mixed use PUDs like this one, if parts of the PUD approval limited review, if that's what the PUD says and that's what the town council approved, we can all be unhappy about it, but it doesn't change anything. Okay, your job on a development plan review is merely ministerial. Does it comply? As I read the staff report, it complies in all aspects except for the 2 waivers requested. The granting of waivers is discretionary, but again, as you work your way through this matter, I would just keep that in mind, that the review of waivers is discretionary. You can apply the criteria of your ordinance and review those. But as to the development plan, if it meets the ordinance, then you would be duty bound to approve it, despite reasonable misgivings, I would call them, just reminding you of that legal standard.
I think Wayne put it well when he said that expectations were set that now are not really being met. I mean, he didn't say that, but I'll say that, in my opinion, not being met. What about the traffic flow? I mean, if we believe there's a safety concern, I mean, at least, is this worth a continuance? I don't know. I mean,
you've got 2 waiver requests, both of which involve traffic circulation and
right,
control.
yeah.
And so, yes, if the plan commission believes it needs more information about traffic circulation in order to make a discretionary decision regarding those waivers, that would be something you could ask for.
I'd really like to understand the connectivity between the 5 sections to understand how that's going to flow and how that would impact that. That would be something that I think the developer could come in and address. Is that fair?
Yes, and in considering the waivers, you might want commitments made about this second connection or extension of roads. You might want to impose conditions on those waivers, that the granting of a waiver, for example, this traffic issue is somehow made as a condition. Some of the things you heard tonight, which you might not have heard before.
Yeah, I mean, once again, we always kind of understood we were trying to get a streetscape that primarily had the front facades on the trail, on the street, kind of that urban village look, and that to do that, you have to put the parking in the rear. But are we going to see more and more of the same, where the whole facades of all the buildings that get built turn their back on whatever we're trying to create? And at that point, you might as well just put in an alley. Put the trash cans out there, to the dumpster, so that they can get to them easily, call it a day. But I don't think that's what we were, once again, initially discussed. And we get down, Roger, I have a question for you. I get down into section 21 about all violations and enforcement of the Holiday Farms ordinance shall be subject to Article 10 of the zoning ordinance. Where do I find that? In the zoning ordinance?
Was it arguable intent? Is that what it was? Arguable intent?
No, in Article 10.
Oh, Article 10. I thought you said arguable intent.
No. I just got to go dig that out.
Article 10 should be the enforcement procedures.
Yeah. It's an unrelated, it's just, I got to go find. I'm sure I've got it somewhere. It's available to me.
I'm speaking not specifically to the section that you were citing, but in a similar PUD that is under current consideration. We just did an extensive review of it this afternoon, and there were a number of typos that we have asked to have corrected. That is an example of one that we found in today's review. So, I was not here when this PUD went through, and staff obviously just missed that one. But again, in a similar PUD that is under current review, we found that same type of example. We just said we don't have an article. And in your case, it's Article 10. We don't have an Article 10 in our zoning ordinance. So that is something that needs to be corrected on the one that we're currently working on. That doesn't help you understand the ordinance that's applicable to this project.
Well, the good news then, if there is a listed Article 10 and it doesn't exist, we can create it now, can't we?
I'm going to defer to council.
Sorry.
He's kidding.
Dave, this is Cindy, but I am gonna suggest that we do continue it because I'm just thinking about. I mean, I've had 3 kids in daycare, and the reality is if you have 30 or 40 different parents showing up in different cars in that high hour of, let's say, 7:30 to 8 a.m. There's been so many times where you can't even get a parking space. I mean, it's if you don't have one way out and one way in, it can be a real problem. So I really do think that needs to be evaluated and that other proposal come up as a part of this.
All right, so we have a request for a continuance, but before we act on that, we can go ahead and do that, but I would have a request of the petitioner.
Why don't we get a second first?
Okay, all right, that's
See if
fine.
there's a second.
All right, is there a second on this continuance motion?
Second.
All right, so we've got a motion and a second. I would ask the petitioner, I mean, it looks like this is going to be continued. I can't predict what everyone's going to vote, but I think I might be right on this one. Can we see what type of commitment language you have relative to the drive space through your property and the adjacent properties? I'd like to understand that better to see if that's really going to be the type of relief that you think it's going to be.
Sure.
And then I guess I'd also like to see if Henke or Henke Development if they can give us an opinion on how they anticipate that to work also. I mean, that's critical to, what you are trying to do with this childcare. So I would ask that be provided next meeting. Is there anything else anybody would like to ask for?
No, that's fine.
If I may just clarify, so what we'll be providing will be the commitment language to any agreements relative to our property and the property to the south, and for any properties that are, intended to connect even further on down in those consecutive lots. And then when you say what you would also like to see if Henke can give an idea as to how the circulation would work, are you looking for a conceptual site plan that has our site plan dropped in? I just want to be clear on the expectation for that.
It's one of those things that if we see the language that you guys are committing to with your property, that may address that second part, because that'll say a lot as to what the expectation is to allowing. I mean, it's going to become like a secondary street. I mean, let's be honest. If so I just want to understand how that's going to work, because if it doesn't work, then it's all going to back to Frederick Place. And you got to remember, there's continued discussion of a development further north, which is going to be laying traffic onto that also. But I mean, we're just dealing with yours right now.
Yes, yeah.
So, all right. So at least the language, and if you don't feel the language is, I would like. I mean, let's get Henke in here. Somebody from Henke and explain. They're the guys who drafted this. They're the ones who are requiring it. Let's get them in here and see what they've got to say about it and how they anticipate this to work. Is that fair?
I'll read. This is Chris Wiseman. I'll reach out to Phil, make him aware of this issue. I think he does have some rough site plans, Melanie.
He does. What he said.
Yeah, they'll need. I agree. I think it'd been really nice if they were present today, but we'll make sure they're here next time and provide any information before the next meeting.
All right, we appreciate that. We've got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Wayne, are you going to take roll?
Yes, Mr. Jones.
Aye.
Mrs. Walker.
Aye.
Mrs. Adams. Aye. Mrs. Madrick.
Aye.
Mr. France,
Aye.
Mrs. Rabinowski.
Aye.
All right, the continuance is granted. We will see you next month on March 21st.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any other matters to be considered? Anybody have anything? Wayne?
I just have a very brief advertisement for our part 2 of the community conversation related to the town council engaging their council as well as other individuals to propose as reaction to the public seeking a conversation about a historic preservation commission, the creation of a historic preservation commission. And that community meeting is at 6 p.m. here at Town Hall, March 8th.
Thank you. Anything else? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thanks, everybody. See you next month.
Good night, guys.
So Roger?